Everybody, Vince Dowd, the founder of Authentic Elevation. We work on the internal dimensions where your real wealth, abundance, and your true nature resides. I wanted to share with you three powerful things that I bet you haven't thought about in regard to what runs your life. And I'm talking about three areas that when you sit with this, you'll realize that you are being run by programs. So let's start with this. I actually researched this, and I also through meditation have found this to be true. But I want to give some resources. First of all, one of the great speakers that I found, his name's Owen Cook. I think he's amazing, actually. And he was talking about some of this, so I want to give him credit on it. Also, I found a website called it's called Transitional Reality, and Transurfing is what they call it. But basically, it talks about the pendulum. And so let me start with that. The pendulum, basically, I don't have a pendulum, but I'm going to use my Apple headset here. So if you think about a pendulum, what it does is it has balance in the middle when there's no movement, but then it starts to move and we get energy. So it starts to swing on its own, going bigger and bigger based on the energy that's put into it. So let's talk about this first with the pendulums. And I've been caught up in this myself. So they talk about the pendulums that are impacting our planet right now. Our planet is in a great problem right now. It is very divisive. There is a lot of energy being expelled into these pendulums. So a good idea of a pendulum would be the news media. The news media is being used to cause tremendous damage and separation and division among people. So you have both sides on a pendulum. And it doesn't matter if you love what's being said or you hate what's being said, because both of those are putting energy out, and the energy causes that pendulum to move. So whether you're on one side or the other doesn't matter. The fact is the pendulum gets swinging and it starts to take all your energy, and it causes division among the people. So we are all human beings. The one thing we got to realize, instead of in NLP, they call it chunking down, where you actually go into the more detail, that separates people and it makes us feel like we're very, very separate. If you chunk up, that's called more oneness. Give you an example of that. If I was in a seminar and I'm teaching a seminar and there's 1,000 people in the room, and I'm making the statement that a 1969 red Mustang with mag tires and black leather is the #1 way to transport yourself or move yourself, who agrees with me? If I went down to those specific thoughts, I would only get maybe one person in the room, or maybe a couple, that would agree with me that is the best way to get around because they really love that car. However, I'm going to lose most people. If I chunk up, however, and I say, listen, who in the room agrees that movement is important for our lives? I would probably get almost everybody in the room. So we chunk up, we get more agreement. We chunk down, we get less agreement. And the news knows this. So that acts as a pendulum. That's one thing that's dividing the country and causing all of us pain. And it's everywhere because it's being piped into us through our mobile phones that are connected to our brains. And now they want to put us on a metaverse and actually have us plugged into the internet. And that's scary. Another pendulum would be politics. Again, creating that movement. I don't like this side. I love that side. And we get this energy. And what's happening is we're creating more division, chunking down. Another one would be religion. Same thing. It's us against them, us against them. So what we're doing is we're giving up our power, we're giving over our control to those few that know how to use the pendulum, and they allow us to actually put our energy towards it, and it starts to destroy our lives. So what we need to do is we need to cut the cord. All of us, myself included. It is very hard to do, especially with media or politics because they're in the media. But that is #1 thing I wanted to address with you. We've got to cut that pendulum, because that pendulum is going to cause major disasters in our lives, in our finances, in our health, in our well-being, and potentially on the planet itself. The other thing I wanted to say is I was researching Owen Cook, and he said something very interesting, and I love his speaking, so I wanted to bring this up. Wanted to dive in a little bit deeper to it. But he made this statement that our mind, now, I separate mind from brain. Through my meditation, I've realized that our mind is like the energetic flow. I look at mind like the internet information that's moving through a pipeline. The brain to me is more like a physical, like hardware. It's like the computer. The internet is like the mind. So here's the key. Our mind is really like an antenna it brings in information, and it brings it in so we can put it out through our senses or bring it in through our senses. So our body is a biogenetic suit that's a measuring device, and we use this measuring device to feel the world, to see it, to smell it, to taste it, to touch it. And all this is just really, in my opinion, it is God in drag, like Deepak Chopra says. And what it is it's us experiencing the world as God. But when you go deep and figure out who you really are, you'll realize that you are not the body. A lot of you might not know that because you've never sat with yourself to question who I am. When you sit with yourself long enough, you'll discover you are not who you think you are. You are not the body. You are not your thoughts. You have thoughts and you have a body, but that's not you, because without both of those, you still exist. And you'll know that if you sit with yourself. You're not your role. You're not the mother, the father, the entrepreneur, the employee. You're not your financial status. You're not a millionaire. You're not broke. These are all temporary. The way you know who you're not is to inquire, what happens when that's gone? Who am I then, right? So once you start to sit with yourself and say, okay, I've had pain in my body. Am I my pain? No, because the pain comes, the pain goes, which means I'm still here. So that means I'm not that. Money might come and go. You're not the money, right? So you're not a religion because you know what? You say, I'm a Christian. Well, you know what? You could change. I used to be a Christian. Now I am spiritual, but I don't believe like I used to believe. I changed, and it's because of more information, more perspective. So I want you to think that through, because here's the way our brain works. It's very interesting. So we are born into life, and when we're born, we look something maybe like this. And we have, if you ever watch a baby, they're beautiful babies, right? I love to watch babies because they take you back to source energy. If you look at a baby's eyes, you realize they're not judging you. They're not filtering you. They're not thinking all these things about you. They're taking in all the information like you once did. And you're just mesmerized with everything. They put things in their mouth. They're discovering the physical world of duality through a physical body, although they are source incarnated in this beautiful body. And then what happens is this: we are born with a brain, and that is our biological needs. So what happens immediately, we have the programs preset on certain things. A baby will cry when it's hungry, right? So the body sends a signal that says you don't have food, you need food. How do you do that? Well, make a sound, let mom know. Or when you wet yourself, or it's uncomfortable, you cry, or if you have pain. Otherwise, a baby pretty much is in total happiness. Watch a baby, they're always happy, they're in joy, they're in love, as long as the biological needs are met. As we get older, it does not change. We have the biological needs. Our brain is filtering out the mind, and it's showing us we need more of this, more of food. I need to go to the bathroom. I need to excrete, right? As you get older and you hit puberty, I need sex. I need to fulfill my sexual urges, right? So what happens is we need that. We need our pack. So just like animals that have their packs, we have our tribes. And it's very hard to be alienated from that tribe because you felt like you would die. And back a long time ago, you would die if you were alienated from the tribe. So it's biologically built in our system that if we are not popular or we're not fitting into a tribe, it feels like death. Although today in our society, you're not going to die, but it might feel like it. So we are run constantly day in and day out by these biological needs. And we got to remember, when we were born, we were source being manifested on the physical planet into duality. Oneness, the absolute, which cannot be thought about in the mind cannot understand the absolute, because the infinite becoming finite is not conceivable. So what happens is it's broken apart into pieces or fragments. The baby's still coming from the source place, looking at everything as one. It doesn't see separation. It sees amazing physicality, but then the human being, the mother, the father, the programs, the people that have been here before will start to program the baby and say, you are a little baby. You are little Joey or Sarah. I'm daddy. That's mommy. And what happens is they start to hear the program of separation. I'm me, you're you. Oh, you're a bad baby. Oh, I'm bad now. Okay, so you start to get these programs. Eventually, as you go down the road, you take on the ideas of your parents. Maybe you're a conservative, maybe you're a Democrat, maybe you're a Christian, maybe you're Protestant, maybe you're a Buddhist, I don't know. But the thing is, we start to learn these programs. And so we have the biological needs that are running our lives most of the time. And then as we get older, we move into the other needs, right? So we need a partner. So we look for sexuality. We look for somebody to share our lives with, to cohabitate with, to have sex with. Now, this is gay. It doesn't matter if you're gay or straight. The fact is, it's the same. And of course, he's feeding him. So we need the food too. So we have the biological needs. We have the needs to survive as a tribe. And then we have more that hits us. So not only we have the biological needs, we have the social conditioning. And this is where a lot of the elites make their money. They create programs and they understand the way the mind and the brain work, and they can program you through your mobile devices. We have our mobile phones. Where's it at? Right there. Our mobile phones right there. And what happens now is they're consistently feeding us information, and it programs our mind because we get the neural pathways that get repetition. And on this repetition, what happens is we start to continually think the way they've programmed us to think. There's a great show that came out about the algorithms used at Facebook, I think the social networks, and it shows how they can condition us. And there's more data with big data now that they know us better than we know ourselves. So they're programming us to get the dopamine hits every time we check our phone, every time we check the shopping, Amazon, get an email, or swiping left or right for dating. All this is social conditioning. And we've seen recently with the censorship, with things going on, that they can change the dynamic of the planet by simply putting out different information and blocking other information, and they can cause you to think and feel certain ways. This is a good example. If you look at, go watch the movie Wag the Dog. Wag the Dog was, I think, a 1980s movie, but it showed how they created all this fear, all these things around war. And when you looked at the studio, it was a green screen and a lady carrying a bag of flour. But when you saw it on TV, it was a lady that looked like she had no money, had a little baby running through a war zone. This is called propaganda. So we know that they can program us, and that's what they're doing consistently. That is called capitalism in many ways. They're trying to get more power, more information, more greed for more control. So that is what's running us. Social conditioning, the programs put in our mind. We have a very complex mind, a very complex brain, and we're now learning that it can be programmed very easily by constant repetition. Number one, NLP, neuro-linguistic program, will show you that if you repeat over and over again, right? Also, you bring up emotion, a lot of emotion, you can change the dynamics of the brain. You can get people to believe what you want them to believe. So we've got number one, we've got biogenetic needs, okay? And that's everything from our food to our, excretion, to sex, to being in a tribe or a pack. Then we got social conditioning. Another one that we have is our ego, which is formed. So our ego causes us to drive much further, right? So our ego says, hey, I need to make more money because the Joneses are making money. I don't want to feel like I'm any worse than them. So I need to make more money, have more cars, have more status in society so I can look cool. I can dress cool. Who do I hang out with? High vibe, high status people. So then we spend our lives trying to please other people. We go out in the world, not with our passions anymore, which we used to do to some degree. The ego has become so big that the ego now controls our mind. The ego, the biological needs, and the social conditioning are controlling 98% of your thoughts day in and day out, 90-some thousand thoughts a day. Most of them are the same as yesterday. You're trying to compete, to keep up, to not fall down, and to feed these needs. So where are you in the mix? Where are you? The real you, not the programmed you, not the you that you think you are, but the you that you truly are, the authentic self. And what does that authentic self want to do on this planet? What is the purpose? Now, I'm not going to tell you what the purpose is. I feel through my meditation that I've understood now what the purpose is. But I'm just letting you know, if you start to think about this and ask yourself, wow, every day I get up, am I operating on my own devices, doing what my heart calls me to do? Am I operating in flow with the universal energy, which, by the way, let me just share this with you. This is very powerful. Before you were born, you did nothing. It was called the illusion of action. You had to do nothing to create this body, to create this beautiful being that you are, to feed you, to create the right warmth, the right temperature, to build it, to grow it. You did nothing. And when you're born, now you start to believe that you have to do everything. There's an illusion of action where we believe that if we do something, it really matters. Now, I don't want you to take this wrong. I'm not saying sit around and be lazy, but what I am saying is we believe that we're doing it. And the fact is, the universe, the same energy that moves the planets, is the same energy that beats your heart, that moves your blood, that causes thoughts to come in. It's energy moving through you. You are simply basically, you're just a biogenetic suit, elements that will return back to the earth like that. We're all on our way to death. But we don't even know if we were really even born. We don't know if this is just a grand illusion that's being projected onto the screen of reality, right? So it's really interesting when you think about it, but I encourage you to sit with yourself. And what I've been doing is simply a very powerful meditation, and it's not meditating on something, it's really meditating on the meditator, which is me, right? Who's me? I don't know. How do I know who I am? Well, I have to ask. Every thought that comes up, I have to question the thought. So if I think I have to do something, I shouldn't be doing this right now. I have other things I need to do. I should be asking, who is it that thinks that? Who is the thinker of the thought? And then it will retrace the thoughts. Instead of going outward, it'll come inward with the thoughts. And I'll start to go back down to the source of who is the source of these thoughts. And the more I question, it's called self-inquiry. I found it through Ramana Maharshi, a great, great yogi who passed away from India, but he had this realization experience at 16 as he questioned death itself. And he asked, who is it that dies? Who is it that's being born? And once he asked that question and went deep into himself, he had a breakthrough and spent his whole life in meditation in a state of samadhi, which is in pretty much the natural state before the ego and before the mind and before all that gets involved. So the question becomes, who is it that's driving your bus? Because really, you're not the father to yourself. The little child in you is the one who has the programs, the belief systems, the ideas and the concepts that actually is driving the bus. They're at the wheel because they were there first. And whatever they believe to be true, based on the parental teaching, the teacher's teaching, the news media, the neighbors, the church, they have belief systems that are inside of you now, and they're running your life. So you have social conditioning, you have the biogenetic needs, the biological needs, and you have the ego. The ego is the mind. The ego is always trying to chase pleasure or run from pain. Remember, we are pleasure-seeking vehicles. We love the pleasure, but we hate the pain. No pain, but give me the pleasure. So the problem with that is we want more pleasure. We're grasping, always grasping the illusionary because it's all going to disappear. But we don't want the pain. And we don't realize there are two sides of the same coin. Pleasure follows pain and pain follows pleasure always. There is no only manifestation of money without having some other dark shadow side. There is no manifestation of all the things you want without manifesting the other side. In a world of duality, you will get the dark side as well. But you've got to understand the dark side is just as valid as the light side. But again, we're using our mind to create separation, good, bad, up, down, masculine, feminine. All these things are simply duality and they're illusion. It's not real. So what's real? Well, if I could give you the best example of what's real, I would say imagine a movie screen. If you imagine a movie screen, this is not a movie screen, but if you watched a movie and you realize you've been encapsulated by this movie, you're so into it that if there's somebody that jumps out of a corner, you actually have a fear mechanism happen. You go into fight or flight because you're so engaged in the movie. If you see fire on the screen, you're believing there's a fire. You've lost yourself in the movie. This is what life is like. It is a screen, and we are actually believing all this that's going on. So there's three states of consciousness. The first state of consciousness is called waking, and that's where we're awake and we're clear and we're talking to people and we're using our ego and our mind. Our mind's very engaged with it. The second stage of consciousness is called sleep, where you're dreaming. So you're still in mind, your body's holding still, but your mind is creating all this imagination, and you're in this whole story in some other field, some other plane, some other dimension. The third state of consciousness is simply called dreamless sleep. That's where your body is not moving, but you are not dreaming. You have no dreams. which means you're in the third state of consciousness. It's also known as Turiya in yoga, which is the state where there's no mind. So there has to be a continuity of you being in all three states, because if you weren't in all three states, you would not be there, right? So you're in all three states. So who is that you? Who is it that's in those states? It's obviously not the mind, because the mind can't be you because it's not in the third state. The awareness is in the third state. If somebody said fire, you would wake up, but you have no mind and you're in peace, you're in bliss. That's where babies are when they're born. It is a different brainwave. It is a different frequency. But if I could give you what I understand of what we are not any of those three states. We exist through that. But if you could imagine the movie screen, we're not the movie. We're not the actors. We're not the energy that's being cast on the screen. That's all changing. It's always temporary and finite. It's moving all the time. We are instead the screen that holds it all. When the fire comes up and it burns, that's temporary. It disappears, but the screen is still there. You can play all the movies on the screen and they all come and go. They feel real, but they all disappear. What's still there is you, the screen. So we are the space, the emptiness, the container of what holds all experiences, all emotions, all thoughts, all ideas, all concepts, all imagination, all memory. All of that is contained within the box of who we are. So it's really our journey on this planet to discover who we are. And we realize at some point in our lives, hopefully along the journey in different dimensions and different time frames, that we are what we call God in drag, like Deepak Chopra says. We are God experiencing itself. And if you look at the world, everything is God, everything is source, everything is energy. So really God is eating itself, having sex with itself. Everything is happening in a cycle and it's all an illusion. And we are the ones projecting it. We are source projecting it, caught up in an illusion of mind. And until we come back out of that and realize we are not who we think we are, we will be stuck in this cycle of chasing pleasure, running from pain, in an endless cycle of birth and death and birth and death until we awaken to who we really are. And we can put that duality aside and realize we are not the good or the bad. We are the container of it all. So I hope this video at least gave you some insights. I would love to hear your comments below. Let me know what you think. Definitely click on the bell and subscribe. I'd love to have you subscribe. I'm going to be doing more and more videos. I want to take this to a new level, bring this consciousness out from the inner dimensions. I will also have stock market videos and so forth because people do want to do that. Trying to bring a new definition to the stock market is always fun. It is learning to meditate before you trade the markets and looking at it like a game. Okay, not getting attached to the money, but understanding that yes, you still need to make money in the physical world. However, it is a journey that we're going on, and who knows where I'll be in a year. Who knows if I'll even be looking at the stock market. So I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think below. Would love to hear your comments. And again, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next video. Have a great day.